Hey kids, it's Old Man Shouting at Clouds, and now with others too. Chatting about the CFL is what they're going to do. Some have no contacts and others have no clues. Everyone will tell us all their quirky football views. Hear what Old Man and others know. It's the CFL Outsiders Show.
Hey, GT. What are we going to do this week?
Same thing we do every week, old man. Take over the CFL.
Hey, kids. Welcome back to another episode of the CFL Outsiders. I remain, as always, your 100% impartial, completely unbiased, and just tickled pink host, Old Man Shouting at Clouds. Joining me this week on our expert fan panel, we're back down to two. We've got apparently wearing Montreal cap for Hamilton fan, MJ. What's up with that?
Hi, everyone. I was supposed to wear my Casey Printers jersey, but my kid and I have a little side bet this year that if it's an Alouettes game and I pick the other team to win and the Alouettes win, I have to wear Alouettes gear. So here I am in my Alouettes hat.
All right.
It's not a very good start of the season for me at all.
No.
I thought somehow you'd lost a bet due to that.
I sure did. Hopefully this is the last.
And they're jumping in from somewhere in the wilderness of the world. We're not sure where this week. It's our roving reporter, GT.
Hey, everyone. Good morning from Gdansk. It is nice to be here again at 4 o'clock in the morning. And this week I am once more, no, I'm not. This week I'm drinking water. I've probably had enough beer in the last 2.5 weeks to carry me over. So I need a little bit dry out period already on vacation, and I'm going to the water. So we'll see if that impacts the quality of the content this week. Well, we'll do our best.
Yes, a not terribly controlled experiment, but we'll see what the results are.
Well, we've never been one for much control here, so.
No, that is true. Well, I'll tell you, I'm in a good mood because, well, first of all, did you manage to stay awake through that weekend of football? Boring, huh? Even that was without the two best teams in. Two really good games, I thought, and an ugly game between the two lower teams, but they were in the playoffs last year, and it was still exciting as hell. So I thought that was great. Plus, on a personal basis, I've got my new knees healed up to the point that I'm hitting the treadmill for about 20 minutes a day now and feeling really encouraged about that. I'll be back out hiking again. I'm hoping maybe by the time we record next week, we'll see.
Awesome.
But I just wanted to open with a couple of things. I did want to mention we're getting more comments, and I like that. I'm picking out one every now and then that tickles my pink, as I said earlier, and putting it out. And this is, I have no idea how to pronounce this username, so I'm going to go phonically with it. Adam I. Kangle 10. I'm sure it's something different than that. But anyway, apparently you have a fan in Adam I. Kangle 10, MJ, because his comment was, good one, MJ, Ford Cinema. Yes. So we love the feedback, whether it's just like that or if you've got something you want to throw a criticism at us, anything wrong or whatever you feel like saying, please jump on in. This is getting to be fun, and it's a lot more fun as we interact with our audience more. So thank you for that.
If you thought that was a little over the top last week, you do not want to read me and my sister's text convos, because that was nothing. We really tried to keep it.
That gave us the comment here and our title for last week, which was dazzling. All righty. Jumping right in. Not too much news this week, so we're going to try a couple other things. And to start us off, MJ apparently has a game about the World Cup to, I guess, honor the fact it's starting soon, maybe.
World Cup starts this week.
I'm not taking anything for granted the way the World Cup has gone so far. Yeah.
So I thought we'd just play, since GT's such a big fan of European football, I thought we'd play a little soccer game in honor of World Cup. Are you either of you Ted Lasso fans?
Yeah, I have watched it. It's been a while.
Right.
I enjoyed it, but it's been a while, so my memory may not be that good.
So we're gonna play a Ted Lasso game. If Team Canada needs a coach to step in last minute to help out, which current and past CFL coach would you be sending to help Team Canada in World Cup this year?
For soccer.
If Ted Lasso can do it.
Yes.
Someone from the
Well, I'm
CFL,
thinking it'd have to be a special teams coach for the kicking side of it. I'm going to go with Jeff Reinbold, seeing as I saw him on TV last week.
All right. Well, I would go with Wally Buono based on his Italian background. He probably grew up playing the game in the streets of Montreal at some point in time. So I would at least have some idea of at least the game is how the game is played as a coach. Other than that, I don't know that anybody else would. So I would go with Wally Buono.
All right. I chose Kahari Jones because he does a good sideline dance, just like Ted.
Oh, yes. And he's big on motivation.
Yeah. Exactly. Just like Ted. Spoiler alert. You're going to ruin it for people.
And Wally Buono's a good choice because I don't think he loses at much of anything.
Yeah, there's that
His
too.
record's pretty darn good. More questions in the
Anyway,
game,
so,
or?
No, so good luck, Canada.
Yes.
We're all cheering.
Go
for
Team
you.
Canada. I am such a fan, I don't even know when their games are, but go Team Canada.
All I know is that by the time I get back, might already be eliminated, so it's all right by me, and all the hubbub will be over. So
Yes. Or you might get lucky enough to be on a plane full of European football fans and have a hell of a trip back. They
yeah,
do
it
know how
could
to
be.
party.
Surprisingly enough, having been here, there was some sort of Euro competition in Budapest when I was there. One of the multitude of made-up championships that soccer has all over the world. And that was it. That was a big deal. People were flooding into Budapest for this game. But other than that, I've heard very, very little. It may just be where I am, but I'm not seeing or hearing a bunch of people talking about it off like every restaurant. No one's asking me about it or anything like that. So it is interesting. Seems to be interestingly low key right now. So I imagine it will grow as it gets into games that matter. Because again, this thing's a month long. And nothing matters until the last 2 weeks. So maybe that's what it is about.
I was in England earlier this year, and all I heard about was soccer for 2 weeks.
Well,
Well,
that
yeah,
makes sense in England, but
Yeah, it was. I went on a tour of Old Trafford. It was so exciting.
there she's bragging again.
World traveler.
My two
Went to
European
Manchester.
panelists here. Yes. Well, I don't want to go negative on it, but the stuff that I've been seeing online, international fans are not pleased with a lot of what's going on with this World Cup. So that's where I say it'll be interesting to see how well it goes over. But get away from that. We're here to talk about Canadian football, CFL and the brand new rules. One of the new rules is the modified Rouge, which we were first told was that if the ball bounced in the end zone and out the back end of it, it was not a point. And then we found as the season started that if it bounced out the side, it's not a point too, which has been an interesting wrinkle. So I just want to ask, what do you think about that? Is it working? Is it better? Is it worse? What's your opinions?
Well, if you like, I'll start. I mean, it looked a little silly because we're not used to it yet. So I think a lot of that was more just people's visceral reaction to that's very different. So, but it did look odd in all the cases where the guys watched it and didn't try to retrieve it. And whether it worked or not, and whether it will work going forward, I don't like the rule. I always said that. As long as it touches the ground, you should have to play it no matter where, and you should have to play it. It's only if it goes out through the end zone in the air that I think it should be no point. If it rolls out and you don't touch it, it should be an awarded point if it's touched the ground. But anyways, it is what it is. As I thought about it more is all of them seem to roll out the side, and that's because we're still kicking to the corners because of the goalpost in the middle of the end zone. So I wonder if next year kickers will be kicking it more into the middle of the end zone because the goalpost will be at the back of the end zone, so they won't be interfering with your kicks so much. So even the coffin corner, so to speak, maybe isn't as much in play as much as you're just trying to land it in the end zone next year in the middle. So that might be change it next year, and we won't have as many rolling out the side as we did this past week, and we may have throughout the year. Or they may look at it and say, it does look silly, and we need to go back to having a Rouge for if it goes out the side of the end zone.
I have I guess 2 comments. My first is they tried to kill this Rouge, and in the Bomber Calgary game, there was 3 Rouges. And so I was like, by killing it, you've made it trying to kill it, you've just made it
Yeah.
stronger.
Yes.
But in all seriousness, I watched Javon Leake. There was a kick, and he was just behind his 10-yard line and was probably around the 8. And I watched him stand there and watch the ball roll out the end zone for a no Rouge. And then the ball got placed on the 40.
And that was the same thing in the Calgary and Winnipeg game too, where as much as I was okay with no point in that, on that one where Calgary kicked it into the end zone and it went out the side on the kickoff after the touchdown, and then for the ball to come all the way out to the 40, I thought that's too far. My immediate thought is that's too far. If nothing else, the offense should have to drive the ball more than 2 plays to be in field goal range to be able to win a game, like to be able to win that, like Winnipeg did. Full credit for them doing it, but nonetheless, I just felt like that's too far to bring the ball out of the end zone. So I think, and especially if again next year when they shrink the field, that's ridiculous that it comes all the way out to the 40. You're at midfield already. You're almost in field goal range. So
yeah, was it a greater, like, did my entertainment value go up by watching Javon Leake stand there?
Yeah,
and
no,
watch a ball?
No, absolutely not. Yeah.
What was that more entertaining for me as a fan than a Rouge? Where, like, if it was a Rouge, he would have played that ball and fielded it and ran.
Yeah,
he would have. So instead, he just stood there. Dynamic returners are standing and just watching balls roll and for a touchback. And that's not entertaining to me. It looks silly. It looks silly. Like, for me personally, I was not a fan of that at all. And I'm not sure if they looked at the optics of that when they were going through these rule changes.
Yes, well, I will say that, even if he was going to give up the Rouge and just ran up and touched it down, you wouldn't spend the 2-3 seconds watching a ball rolling around for no reason. And if you're trying to speed up the game, that makes a little more sense. I do have a few thoughts on this. I agree with you, GT. I think they're getting what they're trying to do, which is more scoring by bringing it out to the 40. But to me, that seems blatantly unfair. If you give up a Rouge, then the 40, I can see that. But if you're not giving up a point, to me, that should be the 20-yard line.
I never liked the idea of moving it all the way up to the 40 for anything. I'm just not a fan. I think that's too close. Going back to last week when I was talking about kneel downs, the part of the game is the offense has to work too. They have to score. And if you give them so much opportunity, it becomes redundant. For a while, I think the game has swung too far in the field positioning to the offense rather than the defense, and rewarding the offense for things that they really didn't do. And now all of a sudden they get it all the way up there. It's like, yeah, that's too much. It's too much.
Well, I think they thought that this would force coaches to gamble on third down. And no one was gambling. They were just kicking it, and it was rolling through the end zone.
Yeah.
The other thing is, to your point about the coffin corner, GT, I don't know that they'll kick in the middle because, again, when you put a punt straight down the middle, you're opening up either side. Two-way goes for the returner. That's why they're always, that's why they're always trying to punt outside the hashes. I know you didn't get to see as all of the Edmonton game, but if you looked at that, Julian dropped a couple of punts straight down the center to about the 5-yard line, and at least one of them went for a fairly good return. So I think we'll still see the coffin corner, but I know one change I would make if I'm coaching special teams out there right now. I'm telling the punter, if you're kicking a coffin corner kick, as soon as it's gone, you get on your horse and get down there, because while they're watching it roll around, if you dive on it, we got a touchdown.
Yeah.
And I can see that strategy.
By next year, when you shrink the field and you've got the shorter end zones by 5 yards and no goalposts in the middle of the field, or in the middle of or at the front of the end zones, at the back of the end zones instead, people will just be kicking it through. You don't have to worry about dropping it in. Right now, you still kind of have to worry about that. But next year, you just kick it in the air right through that short end zone and it'll be done. You don't even have to worry about a coffin corner anymore, pinning people. And there's no penalty for it.
Then you're giving it to them on the 40, which is what you don't want to do.
Right.
You want to lock them down in there. So I don't think it'll change. I think they may change where they bring the ball out to next year. Maybe they move it back to the 35 or the 30 because of the shorter field. But overall, I don't know. And frankly, I don't even want to think about those rules for next year. This is our last season with somewhere close to the original CFL rules. We're here are going to enjoy that. Next year's rules are a problem for next year's CFL outsiders. That's my take anyway. But yeah, I think we're in general agreement that there's some goofiness to it that needs to be hammered out. It'll be interesting to see 6 games in when coaches get a chance to start seeing what's happening and how they strategize for that. Maybe you tell your punter, kick it to the coffin corner, but if you're short, you're short. If it goes out on the 20 and they get a 10-yard penalty, they got the ball on the 30 instead of the 40, and that's better. Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah, or even if you decide to take a no yards penalty, rush down there and take a no yards on the 5, you could bring it. Then you take 15 yards. You're only out to the 20, because if you're running down there full speed and looking like you're going to hit somebody, they might decide not to take the knee or not to allow the time to run out. So, yeah, who knows? There's strategies that will come into play for sure. We're very early in this, so we'll see how it ends up. But yeah, I don't disagree. Initially, it looks like they need to tweak something because it wasn't great, the look-wise, purely aesthetic-wise, and entertainment value, as you said, MJ, for sure.
Any last thoughts before we move on, MJ? I'll take that. Okay. Just a reminder, we're an audio podcast for a bunch of our fans. Shaking your head doesn't help them.
It just makes me really sad because returns are one of my favorite parts of the game. So it's just sad to watch returners standing and watching balls roll around. Yeah. It was very disheartening.
I agree. I hate to see that come out of it. But we will move on to another, well, not depressing, but not exactly positive development of this week. There's been a lot of talk about the fact that the attendance wasn't great and it dropped from game to game. The Montreal at Hamilton got 18,577, which is okay, but you'd like to see at least 5,000 more than that. Then Winnipeg at Calgary, it was only 17,743, and Ottawa was 15,038 in a monsoon. So, but should we be worried about attendance?
No, I think early season attendance has always been a little less. It doesn't start pick up until later in the year. So I don't think, again, it's time you can judge off the first week. We have to give it time to gain some momentum. Will next year's be early attendance? Yeah, I think next year's is going to be impacted, and when they move the season forward another week, and it's going to mean that you're not going to have as many games in the summer fall period where traditionally the attendance does pick up. So your average attendance over the course of the year is where I think what matters, and it may be that'll be impacted by next year's movement. Again, a lot of things talking already about next year, but it just is. I think next year's schedule will be more difficult than this year's, and we have to worry about it in the long term of next year's thought rather than worry about the first week this year.
So a few things. How do I want to say this, because I don't want to sound like this, but as a prairie person, I am much more amenable to sitting outside with a light snow in October than I am just sitting in a really cold, windy, rainy stadium in May or June. By May or June, I've had it. I have had it with winter, and I am not interested in sitting outside in the rain and cold. I will do it for my kids' flag football. I have to be there. I'll do it for any of his outdoor sports because I am a parent. I need to be there. I don't need to be at these games. I don't want to sit in that. Calgary is interesting. They finally have some summer competition because they have the Wild and the Surge there now. And I don't think the Stampeders have had summer competition in a long time. Their tickets are also very expensive. I know the Elks just announced they have a 2 for $40 at the co-op gas stations, which is a good deal because ticket prices are expensive. And I think that might be some of Hamilton's issue. I don't think that's anything to do with the team, although as a Taika fan, I tell you, we are weary, but we are supportive. But if you are choosing between like paying for gas and groceries or going to sit in seats where the Ticats have built a big hanger thing that cuts off part of your scoreboard, maybe not. But I also think that the way the CFL is going, they do not care about your in-game attendance, and that's going to be up to each team to figure that out for themselves. The CFL is not going to help them. They don't even help them right now with the schedule. I will tell you an Old Trafford story. I was at Manchester United and we were asking them how they did during COVID. Well, first of all, I was like looking for the scoreboard. I'm like, where's your scoreboard? And they're like, if you want a scoreboard, you need to go to Manchester City. We don't need a scoreboard. And we would have to take out 3,000 seats for that. And my dad's like, oh. So you rely on a lot of like game day sales. And the guy's like, no, we made money during COVID with no fans because all of our money comes from sponsorships and TV revenue. We don't need anyone in here to make money. And I'm more like, right. That's just icing on the cake. This is where I think the CFL thinks they want to go, where they're at the point where they don't need people in the stands to make money and everyone's going to be profiting off TV revenue. But it does look bad when there's a bunch of empty stands.
Yes.
And Red Blacks, I feel bad for them. That was who's sitting out there. And you know what? If you were at that Red Blacks game, you are a hero because
Yes.
that was disgusting. So good on you.
Yes.
But I mean, the optics look bad, but they don't necessarily need them. They don't need you there necessarily to make money at some point.
Oh, yeah, they do. There's no way this league's ever going to get to not needing fans. I mean, the NFL did that during COVID, too. They proved that they could be profitable, entirely profitable, and they didn't care about having a single person in the seats. It was about their television revenue and stuff. But that's a whole different ball of wax, and that's a whole different level. Same with that soccer in England. It's a whole different level. But the CFL, they will never get to the point where they don't need fans. That we're always going to need fans. And it will look bad like it did the other night in all three games. I thought the same thing, that I was surprised in the Hamilton game that it was as sparsely attended as it was in Hamilton, with the promise of so many things going right for them this year. I don't know what the weather was like. I don't know, it wasn't that. It was on Thursday night, but that's not that big a deal. It wasn't like it was a 10 o'clock at night start. It was a 7 o'clock start. And so anyways, I didn't think the attendance was terrific, but I don't think it's enough to sweat about just yet. As I said, it'll be more about overall. We're never going to get to the point where it's, and I don't believe the CFL believes that either, even though they're obviously going to make more money now with the new TV contract. It's not even close. I mean, half of the big news about, what is it, $500 million over 6 years. I mean, when you're getting into the soccer money and the NFL and Major League Baseball and NBA style money, that's a week's worth of money that they make. So it's like, yeah, they don't care about it. They need fans. They need fans in the stands. They're going to need them for a long time.
The CFL's in this weird middle. They are not on the level of like MLB and NBA, but they're not like PWHL level either.
No.
Right? They're in some weird middle that I was looking today at the leagues and I couldn't quite figure out another league that would be comparable right now. Most are like on the ends of the spectrum and they're kind of just in the middle. I feel like they're kind of trying to do this big thing and they're kind of forgetting some small things. And there's got to be a way for both of them to work out together, like if they're going to succeed.
I agree. From what I remember, the money reported would work out on the broadcast deal would work out to about $1 million more a year per team. And $1 million is not going to replace your gate revenues. Not even close with it. I will say though, and even if they're going that way, as you started out, MJ, with your story, they don't need the fans, but they're not going to take out a scoreboard and lose 3,000 fans. They still want them there. And frankly, in my mind, if you are a team that doesn't sell so well, take some of your lesser seats and do what the Elk have done for the last couple of years. Sell them off a lot cheaper to bring people in. You might as well have someone in that seat. And it's smart marketing. A story here, I don't have this completely correct because frankly, it wasn't me that did it. It was the goddess. She's brilliant at all this stuff. We started looking at the BC Lions games in the Apple Bowl out here, and they were a little bit pricey, but that's okay. But also, season ticket holders got first dibs by, I think, a week or two, and they got a discount on it. So she looked into it and found out she could buy a season ticket in the BC end zone for somewhere around $300 for the year, which gave us the early tickets for the Apple Bowl games. And with the discount, we didn't end up, I think it cost us like maybe $50 more than it would have just to buy the tickets. but we've got it.
What?
We got the tickets, great. And we're going to take the 7 games that we don't go to down there and donate them back to the Lions and say, here, give this to, when you promote whatever promotions you have, here's a sold ticket to someone who needs it. So that's a win-win. And it makes sense why Mark Ehrman was coming out this week saying we're on our way to profitability. They're doing smart stuff.
Someone needs to do a study of what the Bombers are doing.
Yeah,
Like, what are
I
they
don't know. I
doing
think they
that
go
no
out
one else
and
is
kidnap
doing?
fans and just drag them in because they're
Well,
always
what they're doing,
full.
what they're doing is winning. What they're
Well,
doing
but
is
the
winning.
Argos win.
Not
There's
consistently.
lots of
The Argos won consistently that one year. They were 16-2. They haven't won. They don't win consistently otherwise. And they also winning in a city with very little, as you said, summer competition. I mean, what do they got? They got the Golden Eyes or Gold Eyes, the baseball team, and that's about it in the summer.
and the Sea Bears.
And Sea Bears, which is a whole different ball of wax.
Yeah.
But it's but they don't have competition in the summer, so that makes a big difference too. And in the 3 major cities, Montreal doesn't have a lot in the summer. They have events. They're event crazy, but they don't have sports competition in Montreal in the summer. But they have like nonstop events. They have between the F1, then they have the Jazz Festival, then they have the Just for Laughs Festival, then they have a festival every single weekend going on in Montreal from May through to October. So there's always competition in the city of Montreal. Don't forget, it's not just sports that are your competition. And Toronto is just, again, it has competition with 3 other teams in the summer as well. Oh, and there is a Montreal soccer team too, although no one seems to care about it apparently. And then there's and in Vancouver it's the same thing. It's just the size of the city with so much going on that's competition unto itself. Whereas, no disrespect to the smaller centers, but they just don't have the competition in the summer. And somehow those people that bitch and moan about the 3 big centers not attending don't seem to understand until you've been to the bigger centers the difference in what is competition. It's not just the sports competition. It's the concerts. It's the restaurants. It's the everything else that's going on in the city every single day throughout the year. That is competition, not just, there's no other sports team. You can't use that.
You know who the Stampeders are competing with? The Rocky Mountains.
Yeah. And Banff and just getting out of town and all that stuff. So, yeah.
And Edmonton has a million festivals every summer. Like Edmonton is like a FOMO place. Like if you didn't go to 10 events, you've missed out. So yeah. I didn't think about that. You're right. Because you know what? We were sitting trying to schedule out when we were going to go to football and when we were going to go see the Riverhawks team and when we were going to basketball and then when we were going to Kerry West, when we were going to folk, like music. You're right. We sat down with a calendar this week and had to like juggle what we were going to do.
Yeah. I'm like you, MJ. I would rather be there in the fall. I've never had a problem with cold weather games. I think people that complain about the cold are whiners, but that's me. And you bundle up for it, and you smuggle in your illegal alcohol, and you're fine. And football is supposed to be fall, so I'm more worried about that, the move of the calendar, than I am about this 1 week. So
makes sense to me. I don't know if they're doing it, but if you've got teams like you were saying with Montreal and Edmonton, there probably are others where they're competing with a lot of summer festivals and whatnot. If you've got a game that falls sort of within that festival or on the fringes of it, I'd be reaching out to them and say, look, we don't want any money from you. You sell the tickets the way you want, and we'll give you this where you can give a voucher for a discount ticket to our game if people want to come and try us out while we're in town. Might bring in a few more fans, and maybe people that haven't watched a lot of football might convert a few people. My thought. Moving on, last of the rule change. Well, not the last. We didn't talk about the benches. I think everybody agrees benches on each side is a better idea. But the other rule change that came into effect this year was the 35.
I will tell you why. I will tell
wait.
you why it's not.
Yeah.
How many objectionable conduct penalties were there this weekend? There were
Bench
a few.
penalties?
You know why?
I saw 2.
Because people were impeding the ref. Because there's no room. So all year long, you're going to have this in Montreal, Toronto, Hamilton, Ottawa, and I think, is it BC? There's not a lot of room on those sidelines. There's no room. And so there was people getting bench penalties. All those games had bench penalties because people were just like impeding the ref, like, but there's nowhere else to go.
I did not see the replays of any of those penalties because I don't think TSN was focusing on it at all, and maybe they will now. But so I don't know whether it was just coaches forgetting, coaches not realizing that they were impeding and just doing what they normally do. They're always a bit on the field, so maybe that's what it was. And there's, as you say, MJ, there's not as much room there, so they will have to learn to draw back, or whether it really will impact the way coaches want to coach. It might take a game or two, and those should go away, you would think. But it definitely did impact this week.
Yeah. Noel Thorpe got the one, and actually TSN did, because they couldn't figure, it was the first time that it got called. They were like, what? A bench penalty? And then they found it like, oh, Noel Thorpe's standing in the way of the ref.
Yeah, and he went and stood directly in front of him. And they also said, this has been a continuing problem and they haven't been enforcing it. And they've told the teams this year, we're going to enforce this. I think it's just the coaches being right in the game and not thinking of what they're doing. They'll have to learn. It's one more thing. But
yeah,
I didn't expect a debate over that.
Both penalties did seem to come at inopportune times for the teams that got penalized. I did notice that. It wasn't like, all of a sudden, like it was, that's a penalty, and that wasn't a good time to take a penalty.
Yeah. Yes. But I was trying to lead into the 35-second clock rule. And the one thing with the benches on either sides of the field, but more in the middle, it did seem to me like the player changes between downs was going quicker. What did you think? Did you notice the 35-second rule? Did you like it? Did you not like it?
Like in the preseason, I didn't think there was enough exposure to the clock itself so that you knew it was clicking down. It needs to almost be a bug up in the corner of the top right corner of the television screen. As soon as it kicks in on your screen, you can see it counting down, and you know that they got to hustle and get it in. If they're making such a big deal of this, make it readily apparent to us that this is impacting us. Otherwise, it's like, did it matter? I don't know. It's just, I didn't see it. But again, I said by the time the midseason comes around, like the hash marks, you won't even know that they changed. Halfway through the year, you'll have already adjusted to it. You won't even recognize it. But I do think that TSN as a broadcaster, not the league, but as the broadcaster, could do a better job of highlighting the actual time, because it didn't seem to be readily available to look at anywhere on the screen, as far as I could tell.
I agree with that point about the widget. Something nice in there. I'm not holding out a lot of hope, because TSN still doesn't have competition this year. And if you want to know how quickly they react to stuff, you can take a look at the fact that when you record the pregame show, their little face card, their flash card, has Rod Smith as the host. So they don't keep up with their changes much.
I got some texts from family asking me where the 35-second clock was. So I think that it would be helpful if we had the 35-second clock up, but I know baseball doesn't show the 8-second clock for batters on pitchers either. So maybe, and honestly, I didn't even notice.
When I watched the odd, I don't know, minute and a half or 3 minutes, or maybe I actually watched one of those last Blue Jays games when they were in the World Series there. And I did see on the regular broadcast in the scoreboard across it, the countdown of the 8-second pitch clock. So it was there that you could watch it count down. You can certainly watch it in NBA. It counts down in front of you, the 24-second clock, every single time. It's just there as part of the bug or whatever they call it across the bottom. And that's where it should be. And it used to be there for the 20-second clock in the CFL.
Like, did the I'm pretty sure that the 20-second clock was there. So then I was like, why is the 35-second clock not there?
That's the point. Is that why?
Yeah.
100 years, why all of a sudden can't they show the 35 is part of their bug? Did their technology not keep up, and they simply aren't, don't have the ability to show it, or what?
Can't switch it from 35 to 20, so they just decided to show the 20.
Yeah, anyways, yes, I agree. It's not so much about the game as much as the entertainment value of the game. And if this is supposed to improve the entertainment value of the game by making it faster and speeding it up and giving us more plays and more excitement, then show it to us so we know that what it's doing and how it's working. Otherwise, it's It's like, what was the point? You know?
I want to know how
Yeah.
many seconds Willie Jefferson has to make his air guitar before he has to set for his next play.
Exactly.
I want to count that down.
Yeah, I want to know whether they're actually counting it down or not. More than anything,
Well.
like, are they actually counting it down? Is it actually going from that time that last play? I want to see a split screen from there's the ball going down and there's the clock starting to count down. Until then, I'm going to be doubting Thomas. I'm sorry. I don't believe you that anything's changed. Show me. That's what they should be doing. Show me.
Yeah. I agree completely. Yeah. And it's not a technology issue because they did show the 35-second clock occasionally. There were at least a half a dozen times across the 3 games that I saw them pop it up there, but it's not consistent. And I agree that would help a lot just to keep me at where they're at and how each of the teams are at and how well they're adapting to it. But I will say overall, I only really noticed it when the announcers were talking about it. Otherwise, if you asked me, I would have just said, well, the game flow does seem a bit better. It seems like there's less stoppages and a lot less of the officials' conferences that go on for 5 minutes over, is it an offside or a illegal conduct, and anyway, so I think in general, we're like, the consensus is the rule might not be that bad, but we'd sure like to see better how it's being implemented and a little more transparency.
And again, then you'd think the league would want us to see it as an improvement so that they can sell it to us and say, look, it worked. 1 step forward, 2 steps back, as always.
Yeah. And I don't know we can blame the league for that. I can see them asking TSN, but I think it's more the TSN complacency now, especially now that they know that what they've got till next year and they'll have to work hard next year.
Yeah.
But that's that. We're going to move on to something that's a surprise for myself and MJ because GT just dropped us a note saying he has a new mystery segment that, did you say we might want to do this weekly?
Absolutely. So, well, I don't know if it's absolutely, but I think it might be fun to be able to see if we can manage to do this weekly. And this came about because it's 4:00 in the morning when I'm doing these in the last few weeks. And it was last weekend. And I'm going to blame you, old man, because you did the first one. Once I explain what it is, I want you to go back and search and see if you can come up with where last week's first game of the year this actually played out. You did this last week, and I immediately went, oh, that's a segment we could use in every week. Right now, I'm calling it the rock reference, or the other thing we could call it is lyrical eloquence, I thought was the other one the other term we could call it. So this is where somewhere throughout the show, there will be a lyric quoted from a song. And each of us are charged with dropping in at least one lyric from a song throughout the show. And then I want our listeners and viewers to be able to tell us after they've watched or listened to the show where it was. Okay, so the lyric itself, which we used, the band that it came from, the album that the band had, and the title of the song. So it's not just, oh, that's the thing that you said. It is lyric, band, song, album that it all came from. It may be different for us too. I think it might be interesting because I have a feeling that old man and I will be stuck somewhere 25 years earlier than MJ, and MJ's going to go, yeah, I don't know any of those songs. And MJ's going to quote all these things from the 2000 teens, and we're going to go, yeah, we don't know any of those songs. So, anyway, so that's what it is. I have one ready to drop into this week's show to see if anybody can get it. I've already figured out where I'm going to run it, where I'm going to say it, but I want to know if either of you remembers last week's reference point that would have started these shenanigans going forward. What song did old man drop into the show last week?
You two were talking about a song I had never heard.
Yes. We that quote or that opening little joke getting people to subscribe to was a ripoff from Arlo Guthrie from Alice's Restaurant, which is about a 25-30-minute song from the early 70s about the draft and avoiding it and whatnot. And if you have never heard it, you should get it. Back when they used to have LPs, it was one side of the LP, and then the other side had about 6 songs on it.
Yeah, but that was sort of a take on the song. I'm talking about the point where you actually quoted quoted lyrics from a song.
Now, see, this is how bad my memory is. I don't even remember that. Who did I quote?
Okay, so at one point in time when we were speaking over each other and you went to, as we never do on this podcast, you corrected me and then you excused me with the line, "Carry on, wayward son."
Yeah.
And
So
that's what,
Yeah.
and I immediately went, "Oh, right. Okay, so
I know that song.
yeah. So even MJ got this one. That's how ubiquitous that song is. It's been used in so many ways. So of course now, so the trick is just for fun. While we're continuing this along, let's go through the 4 stages. Let's name the song. There's the lyric. Now name the song, the band, and the album that song came from. Anyone?
Oh, I'm not even anywhere near that good. I know it all from Supernatural. It was almost their
this is
theme
a
song.
Supernatural song.
Yeah. Yes.
Carry
Wasn't
on.
it Kansas? I'm thinking Kansas, if I remember right. But,
Yeah, Kansas, right?
Yes, it
Yeah?
is. Kansas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but albums and
This is from the 70s. Can we just have a decade?
So that's actually from Leftoverture, the album Leftoverture. That was the biggest album they had, well, maybe not. Maybe the next one was bigger, with Dust in the Wind on it. But yeah, that was the track. So anyways, that's what I figured we would do from every week going forward. So somewhere throughout this week's conversation, there will be a lyric if anybody can come back to us with where it is. And you know what? If you simply get the song, we will be impressed. So let's just leave it at coming up with the band and the song. So anyways, I thought that'll be a fun game to see if we can continue.
Get ready for Taylor Swift lyrics.
I'll be a lot of pure old country, so people challenge people. But GT, so what was the name? I always thought the song was "Carry On, My Wayward Son," but is there a different name or?
No, there is just "Carry On, Wayward Son." In the song title, there is no "My Wayward Son." It's just "Wayward Son."
Okay.
So
all right.
Yes.
Well, that sounds good. It also means that when I drop a lyric, I'm now going to have to go back and do some research about when it came out. And I mean, I know the artist generally and the line, but the rest I'll have to figure out. I like that. That sounds like fun. Let us know in the comments, folks. What do you think? And I don't know. We don't do merch, but we'll figure out some way to reward whoever gets the most right. If you want to drop comments in and let us know.
Golf claps all the way around for the most right.
Yeah. I sing lyrics to my kid all the time, so I can't wait.
The problem will be making sure that because we're doing this regular now, a lot will just come out spontaneously, but we'll also have to make sure that we've got one in the background we can shoehorn in at some point. I like it.
We'll figure out how it's going to work, but for anyone that's listening, you now have to listen to the rest of the podcast, waiting to see where we're going to drop this line that I have already built into somewhere.
Okay. I like it. It's not actually a new segment. It's a new challenge for our listeners and viewers to see if you can even pick them out. All right, we're going to get to recap the games, but first we need to recap, unfortunately, fantasy this week, because MJ and I are both in the CFL podcast fantasy league now. Now, the good news is we don't know if we won or lost because they haven't put the schedule out yet. So I don't know if Adam's going to include these first games in the schedule or if he'll start with next week. But I can tell you, I did not do well. My mind wasn't there going back into a brand new season. And I really just kind of went with what my gut said. And that's stupid. Check into Old Man Plays CFL Fantasy on Thursday afternoon, and I'll tell you about how I'm going to be a little more methodical and analytical about it this week. But I ended up out of a 16-team league, I ended up as 13th with 71.3 points. And I really only lost one player to injury, Thief for Montreal, but just everybody else I had Bo and Kenny Lawler, and I thought I took Tim White because, they're building their offense around him. And I took cheap running back, and I took the Edmonton defense, and The defense probably scored almost as much as anybody else. So better luck for me next week. How about you, MJ? Did you check out your point total?
Yes, I have a statement I would like to read.
Okay.
To my child, I am sorry that when you asked me to pick Alexander as my quarterback, I told you I needed proof of life, quote unquote. And when you next suggested VA, I shot that idea down and vetoed you to pick Bo Levi Mitchell. It will not happen again. Love, Mom.
Good for you.
I am 14th. I am 14th out of 16th. Travis and Sheldon did worse than us.
Yes, that's the only bright light. The two
Okay,
and
so
out boys
let's
were 15 and 16.
Hank ended up with 70 points. So here's what happened. I picked Bo, as you heard. I will not do that again. That was my bad. I picked the Calgary defense because I had zero faith in Tommy Condell, and I thought they were going to ruckshot over them, and that did not happen. So that's on me. Two things that were not on me. Thies got injured in the first quarter.
Mm-hmm.
Cole Speaker got injured in the first quarter. Cole Speaker got 3.2 points. Thies 0.8. And then I had Mills as my other running back, and that did well. I had Keandre Smith, that did well. And my flex was Gittins Jr., which he did well. So if I had not had two injuries and I had not had Bo or Calgary, if I had half of it did well, half of it tanked. So hopefully next week's better.
Yes, when I looked at it, I was more impressed with your picks than mine. Just bad luck hurt you, that's all.
I wish I would have picked Tyler Snead.
Yes, well, it's always so much easier when the games are over.
Yeah.
But what's the old rule? One day to celebrate or moan about it and then flush it because we're on to next week. So we'll see how we do. We'll see if this cost us anything, if we actually had opponents. If we did have opponents, let's hope they were Travis and Sheldon. And
CFL Outsiders did better than the 2-and-out guys. That's what I know.
yes, well, I almost wondered if they just auto-selected or if something went wrong there because they're usually pretty good. At least we weren't at the bottom.
Nope, only we're moving up. Next week's different.
Yep. Okay. So now we should talk about the games a bit.
Once I get back to North America and into a regular mode where I could follow and make some timely decisions on a regular timeline, I will probably start playing again. Not within the league itself, but at least weekly. At this point in time, it's too much work. It's just too much work from over here.
So we'll now move on to the games. The opening game, Montreal 30, Hamilton 27. This game was never in doubt, I got to say. It was obvious Montreal was going to win. They held the lead for, I'm not exactly certain, but I think it was about a half a second. Whatever it was the time from when the kick went through the goalpost till it touched on the ground and the game was officially over. So yeah, Hamilton did a lot of things right, but made some mistakes as well. And Montreal was shooting themselves in the foot with penalties all over the place. And frankly, it was I would say probably 2 or 3 really nice passes by Alexander that made the difference in the game. I got a bunch more we can talk about, but I'm more interested in your opinions there. MJ, you're the Hamiltonian fan with the Montreal cap. Why did you go first?
Yeah, things were looking so great, weren't they? Take that, kid. It's going to be amazing. Sucks to suck. And then Bo Levi threw that pass right into that receipt defender's hand, could not have thrown it to him any better. And then I feel like after that, it just crumbled. And Montreal had a little life left in them and crawled back. And they are lucky. Maltos Diaz kickoff, walk-off field goal to tie it, and then field goal to win it. What a guy.
Yeah. In overtime.
I'm not going to despair too much because, in overtime. It went to overtime. It wasn't like they were fumbling around. It did go to the wire. They had Kenny covered really well. They really planned well for that. Noel Thorpe, once they got going, because at first I was like, Montreal looks as bad as they did in preseason, ha ha ha, and then I think Alexander Dave, it's almost like he was just like, enough's enough, and now we're going to be serious. And once he had decided enough was enough, then they started gunning, and they started putting some plays together. Some things that I noticed. Phil Pott, catch of the year, first game.
Yep.
Maybe.
Yep. The one
I couldn't
where
even
he
figure out how he caught it. It
caught
was
it
like
one-handed
in
behind the DB's
he
back.
was behind a defender.
Yeah.
He like reached around and grabbed it and pulled it. Wow. That
Yeah.
was beautiful.
Yeah, I didn't think, you know, it was really, I thought that was a really difficult thing for television, but I honestly didn't think they did enough like angles and stuff of replays of that they could have done a better job. It was like the interception last year in BC, where they did go back and show it from multiple angles and so on before you just realized how amazing it was. And if they had showed it in slow and from the side and so on, again, that was incredible that he was able to go in between the guy's arm and get that ball and then keep it and everything else. So I thought TSN didn't do a great job on that particular play of giving us, and maybe they just didn't have them, but it didn't look to me like they did as good a job as they did last year on the interception.
They weren't ready for catch of the year.
Yeah.
In the first game. What else? I mean, if I feel bad for the Alouettes because Speaker, Thies, and Justin Lawrence got injured in the first quarter. And those are 3 heavy hitters. So that's not great news for them. And now they said that Lawrence is on the 6-game injured list. So that's bad news for the Alouettes. The Ticats, guys, the Ticats used a quarterback for short yardage.
Yes.
They used Dylan Della.
Yeah.
They can do it. So I thought I was seeing things, but they did it. And it was very exciting. So that's going to bode well because they, like, Litre is Litre and he does a good job. But as we mentioned, there's no trick play if a fullback or running back is running your short yardage. Yeah, we already talked about the objectionable conduct stuff. Did you see Tyler Sneed lay out Jamal Peters?
Yes.
I missed that part. Nice block from him.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I was like, we're going to have the hit of the year and the catch of the year in one game. That was vicious, like beautifully vicious, because if you don't know, fans, Jamal Peters is quite a bit taller than Tyler Sneed, and Tyler Sneed just came in there with the ball and just laid him out flat. I don't expect this level of football in week 1, to be quite honest. I don't expect catches like this. I don't expect hits like this. I expect a little continuation of preseason. So I was very pleasantly surprised that this was the quality of football for week 1. We talked about Bo's terrible interception. We know to talk about that. Did you watch the Speedy B tribute?
Sorry, the which?
Speedy B tribute. Or did you fast forward through it?
Actually, I did fast forward through that. That's me.
Okay, so I will tell the story. So Ticats were honoring Speedy B, put it like for, on their wall of fame, like on the wall, because of his contributions to the Ticats. He is beloved in Hamilton, like absolutely beloved. Then so Kate and Milt are presenting this, and she's like, there's only thing better than one standing beside one Hall of Famer is 2 Hall of Famers. And they're like, congratulations, Speedy B. You're getting inducted in the CFL Hall of Fame. And he didn't know. So he was just like, everyone got to see his live reaction to that. And that was really nice.
Did they show him cry? Did they show him crying on the sidelines? Did they show him throwing his helmet and leaving the field when he's in the middle of a game? Did they show all those temper tantrums that he had? Did they show any of those things? Did they show him losing the game because of a legitimate penalty and the Grey Cup? Yeah, no. I wasn't watching that.
No, we don't remember things like that. We remember how fun and kind he is and how fast he was.
Yes.
That's what we remember in Hamilton.
Full credit. He was an amazing player. He was outstanding. I mean, full credit to him. But I'm just giving Ticat fans a hard time.
Yeah. He lives in Grimsby, and I think he's around the organization a lot, and he's like in the area and sticking around. So I think it's just like it means a lot to Ticat community. He's there, so that was really nice.
Hold on again, just 1 second. I'm going to take this in because I don't know if you'll cover it, but just since you mentioned that part, I also wanted to congratulate TSN and Matthew Shinetti on their opening little, I don't know what you call it, feature at the start of the pregame show called Confetti and Championships. And he did an excellent job of putting together a feature that by the time it was over, I was ready for football and had some goosebumps. And then in the middle of it, their interview segment was with Kenny Lawler, and I didn't know this at all. He's moved his family to Canada a few years back. Him and his wife were both on there, and his son. His son is autistic. And they said they specifically came up to Canada, wanted to be here because it was just so much of a better environment for his son. And didn't specifically talk about necessarily, medical treatments or that, but he said just the general attitude. And his wife mentioned he struggled so much in school down in the States because he was belittled and ridiculed and that. And she said, we just don't see any of that here. He's so much happier a child. So that was a good news story that I wanted to acknowledge, and full credit to Kenny and his wife. They obviously have some challenging circumstances with the son, but they are so upbeat, and there's obviously an awful lot of love in that family.
Yeah, I thought that was a very good piece, and I thought they did a pretty good job the next night too with Vernon on the interview there. Certainly not as touching a story, but I just thought they did a pretty good job on both of those pieces as such. I thought those were a good way to start. I don't know if they did anything on the third night because I wasn't paying that much attention, but I thought both of those pieces were very well done.
So let's move it to wholesome, to my last point of this game, which is thank you, TSN, for the drone overhead shot of Alexander getting his pants ripped off in the pile. Really appreciated it. Looks like he's been going to the gym.
They certainly had the angle on that one to get what was going on.
I screenshotted it. Don't you worry, friends.
Yes. Full moon season.
This game had everything. This game had everything.
As a Stampeder fan, we were so used to John Cornish losing his pants that we don't even consider that anything out of the ordinary. So
That's true. And then my last, I guess I have one more fun about, was that we did not predict any of our game announcers and color commentators correctly.
No.
I don't know what they were doing, and I don't understand, but here we are.
In our defense, they did announce Luke Wilson as the Friday Night Football analyst.
He announced himself as that.
And instead they had him on Thursday. So I'm assuming he's the Friday Night Eastern Canada football analyst.
I don't know, but it was him, Dwayne, and Rod in the booth, and I cannot think of a worse three-headed monster for me personally, but I persevered, and I watched this game, and I enjoyed it till the end.
Okay. Any quick thoughts or longer thoughts from you, GT?
No, that was basically, and I agree with MJ entirely, that the quality of football on both sides for the first game of the season was good. I thought the quality in the second game again was pretty good too. Offenses generally take a little bit more time, but they were all four offenses in those first two games were running pretty fast and pretty sharp. And we got two great early season games that we don't necessarily get. So I was pretty happy with that. And I like the outcomes. I thought the outcomes were good in the way of the scores and the way that it came down to final second plays in both games and overtime and stuff. That's a tremendous way to start the season. So yeah, good.
I thought it was incredibly entertaining. I did mention earlier that I thought the difference really came down to a few passes that Alexander made. There was I think it was the first touchdown. He hit Sneed deep over the middle. And there were 4 DBs around him. And if once they showed the correct angle on it, you could see the window he put the ball through was roughly an inch or two bigger than a football. It was just for a pass several yards downfield, probably 30 yards downfield. That was as good as you could go. And then again, just before the 3-minute mark in the first half, they had a bad sequence where they gave up a penalty on when they were returning a punt and then took an unnecessary roughness, and they ended up second and 25 on their own 15-yard line. And he pops another 70-yard pass to Sneed that sets up a field goal. So those things made a difference. And then the turnovers made a big difference. I believe there were only 2, but they were huge. As you mentioned, MJ, there was the pick 6 that Montreal picked off a bow and took it in. And then when we went into overtime, Hamilton made a couple of reasonably good runs, then tried a short pass to Wheatfall over the middle, and he caught it and then dropped it. So they got no points. All Montreal had to do was run the ball a few times to get as close as they could and then kick the winning field goal. So that, if you're a Hamilton fan, that had to just crush you after the way they fought and scraped and clawed to to win that game. And like I said, they were, up until then, Montreal never had the lead. It was tied at points, but Hamilton had the lead for, So that was hard to take. But like I said, Montreal also 15 penalties for 118 yards, and just stupid penalties. They kept shooting themselves in the foot.
You know, Ticat fans are used to people taking penalties and having interceptions in game critical situations. We are starting to like have some thick skin about it.
I can understand that. And I can also say here on a personal note, I could see already at this point in the game that my fantasy picks had not been great. So I'm looking for anything I can get. And one of the running backs I took, because he was cheap and a starting running back, was Roundtree III for Hamilton. And he got some points, but not much. But they get down to the 1 yard line. And instead of going for a quarterback sneak the way everybody does, they line up in shotgun. And yes, Roundtree touchdown, go, go, go. And they pass the ball. And it's incomplete. So they line up again in shotgun. And a reprieve, I'm back. And they run a friggin' fullback drive to Litre, and he gets the touchdown on this fullback dive. I could not buy a break this week.
Sound like a Ticat fan.
Yes. What else? Did I have anything else down here? One of the Hamilton Tiger Cats touchdowns came on a backward pass to Wheatfield, which was a weird wrinkle on sort of a jet sweep that was nice wrinkle, and it turned out well. And I was going to give credit where it's due. Luke Wilson at least was on the ball enough to make the point at the end of the game that if this was last year's rules, it wouldn't have gone into overtime. Because that one punt that dribbled out the sidelines would have been a point. And I think that was for Hamilton, and they would have won.
And in the second game, if it was last year's rules, we would have went into overtime.
Any other thoughts on that one, or do I jump on to the next one?
Just that I listened to a 3 Down Nation podcast with Kenny Lawler, and he talked about how he talked to Wheatfall all off season to try and get him there, and then first game he fumbles in overtime. So
yeah,
I think he'll be fine, but that just was not a good way to introduce yourself to the fans.
We'll go on from there to the next night, where Winnipeg went into Calgary and pulled out a 30-28 win. So first game 30-27, second game 30-28. I was waiting for 30-29 in the Sunday or in the Saturday game, but it never happened. But anyway, this was a nice back and forth game. You saw a lot of good running from both teams in the first half. Condell, surprisingly enough, ran the ball more than I expected him to. And I will say that I did think that it would have been a considerably different game if the Stamps had Hutchings and Flo in there, because they were getting pretty good pressure on Zach at times with just one defensive end with Hicks. If they had stuff like that from the other side, it may have changed things up. But I'll also say that it felt to me like Winnipeg came out with more pop in their step at the start, and it seemed to take Calgary longer to get their feet under them and gather themselves. Once they did, they performed quite well, and they weren't in too big of a hole at that point, but that was my impression anyway. So I'm happy to hear what the two of you thought. Maybe this time we'll start with GT.
Yeah, it was, I had predicted Calgary to win the game, but that was before I realized that, both Flo and Hutchings were not going to play, and that Clark Barnes was not going to play. And they made some other decisions that I was surprised at. I'm not sure why they kept all those guys out when they were all healthy and ready to go, apparently. And I know that they are on the bye this week, so maybe it was, let's just give them an extra week and we're giving time to get 100% or 110%, as they like to say in sports, ready to go. But that, I think, I agree with you, old man, that changed the flow of the game, pardon the pun. And I certainly think that they, that would have made a difference. And in the second half, as MJ always says, those darn Winnipeg, adjustments at halftime came into effect, and they just adjusted at halftime. And Calgary didn't seem to make the adjustments or wasn't able to keep up with Winnipeg's adjustments. In the third quarter, particularly, it showed Calgary's offense wasn't getting anything going that they had going in the first half. And so that third quarter was basically Winnipeg's game. And then, That drive late in the game was outstanding by from their own basically 2-yard line all the way into the end zone. That was 16 plays or whatever it was. That was an amazing drive. I thought they did some things, and of course it's always nice when we get a game at McMahon and McMahon Rabbit shows up, and there's always that. And all I could think of course, was run, Rabbit, run. It was fun that way. It had everything else going for it. The crowd could have been better, but it didn't look that bad. And yeah, I thought it was an exciting game, much like the first game. Entertainment value-wise, it was good.
Yeah, I would agree. It was certainly exciting with it. And yeah, again, what I said about Alexander, a couple of nice passes made the difference. There were a couple of passes from VA that certainly kept them in the game. He hit Philpott on a 51-yard pass early on in the second quarter, and that set up a TD. And then the 32-yard pass to Brooks later in the game that set up the touchdown. So those were both very basically things of beauty.
Looking at that lineup, though, and looking at players that weren't playing, the one player that I am more concerned about, and I didn't think I would be able to say this, but I am concerned about Reggie and where Reggie's going to fit back in when he comes back into play. I think that they can move Barnes in and out between him and Brissett and Janus and stuff, and still be able to have 2 or 3. But I think Brooks may be taking Reggie's spot away. So I think Reggie will get his opportunity to show that he's back or not. But even then, I think I don't know that he's going to be in on every single play throughout the year, unless they move things around and Tevin Jones doesn't. Again, I'm just not 100% sold on that guy. And it's going to be interesting to see what they do with receivers in the next couple of weeks. So,
any thoughts, MJ?
Yeah, I have some. Let's talk the Bombers for a minute. When I look at depth charts and rosters, how you see things, but you don't see things. So as I was picking the Calgary defense in my fantasy, and I picked Calgary to win, I forgot that Vavel, somehow in my mind, I forgot that Vavel was back to return for them. I was like, oh, crap. And then I think we have a huge problem with Serezna and Willie on defense, friends. Because Serezna had 3 sacks. Willie, who you told us could not play anymore, had 2 knockdowns and a sack. And I think that the combo there is a massive problem for any other team this year going forward.
Okay, wait, because I've got to defend myself here. I've had a good Christian raising and an 8th grade education. There ain't no need for you to go treating me that way. I did not say Willie couldn't play. I said he was not a premier defensive end anymore. And I still stand by it.
No, I would say the stat sheet says he is. I think they are a little wrecking crew, the two of them. What else do I have? Brady is slapping his helmet first game, so other teams beware. He's in head slapping mode. I know, as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, it's lights out for Calgary. It's lights out. Yeah. If he's slapping his helmet, you are done. And they played a lot better than I expected them to. I think they looked better than they did end of last year. So good job, Winnipeg Blue Bombers. 2 other little comments that are not really game related, but Dusty made a little Alberta joke, which I really enjoyed. His first in Red Deer when it was first in 21. That's a little QE2 joke for you friends. That was appreciated that. And I like the Stamps New jerseys. I know they were quite controversial and there was lots of opinions, but I liked the color. And I like the white stripe on the pants, and I thought they looked good. I don't know. Some people were saying they didn't translate well to store, like for fans, but they looked good on the players.
Yeah, I thought that. Well, the white stripe saves the uniform. Otherwise, it would have been too much, as I've said before. But the white stripe saves the uniform at that.
I thought, for whatever it's worth, I thought the difference in the game really came down to sort of what you were mentioning, GT, in that third quarter, especially towards the end of it. The first 10 minutes of the third quarter, both teams kind of went away from their running games or had no luck with them. And Winnipeg seemed to scare Calgary off with that, and they stopped going to Mills at all rather than being able to adjust and get him some yardage. But on the other side, Winnipeg late in the third started running the ball. And whatever the differences were, Calgary just wasn't ready for that drive, and it pretty much shredded them and gave Winnipeg the chance to get back in it.
Yeah, and then it came down to a kick that sailed just a bit too far. If that kick at the end is 5 yards less than it was, Winnipeg gets the ball at the 5-yard line instead of the 40-yard line, and and that's really what it comes down to, right? So for everything else that happened, it's really one play, and it really wasn't even that the ball sailed right into the end zone, and it was dropping down and then just kind of went into the end zone and then out the side. Otherwise, the ball's at the 5 or 10-yard line or 20 even. If they get it that far out, and it's not nearly the same kind. The outcome of the game is probably Calgary wins by 2. It's not like Calgary didn't play well enough to win the game for all of that. I don't think it's a true indication of one team versus the other team necessarily. I think Calgary, without 3-4 starters, if you take Paredes into that, and Rene doesn't have the leg to kick it that far, so we wouldn't have had that situation. So there's that too. We're taking out 4 key guys, and we were there at the end. So I'm not that stressed about the loss, to be honest with you. I mean, it doesn't look great when the other 2 teams in your division won their opener, and maybe their third team does this week. But I'm not that worried about it in the long run. It'll be close enough that we'll manage it.
That game could easily have gone either way based on a few plays. You take the scores where you can get them. You never turn down points, but frankly, Calgary probably scored a little too quick on that last drive of theirs. They left Winnipeg, a minute and 2 or 4 seconds left or whatever. If that last touchdown had come 30 seconds left in the game, it might have been a different outcome.
Yeah. And again, for all of my conversations, however you want to take them about the 40-yard line and all that stuff, the reality is too, your defense has to stop them, and your defense doesn't stop them, and you don't win. So they should have been able to stop Winnipeg from the 40 and got the ball back and run that timeout, but they weren't able to stop them. And Winnipeg was able to get close enough to kick the field goal. So full credit to Winnipeg for doing it. And the Stampeders weren't able to make that adjustment or to have a defensive call that went the right way. And maybe that's those 2 guys, as we talked about, not being there, but maybe it wasn't. The same thing might have happened if all those players are there. If candies were nuts or whatever the case the saying is, right? So
we'd all have a very Merry Christmas. Yes. And I say this a little tongue in cheek, but the idea of Winnipeg marching close enough to get the ball, I have a feeling that if they got that touchback with 2 seconds left in the clock and got the ball on the 40, they might have sent Castile out there anyway, because he's hitting from well over half the field as it is.
Yeah.
Nothing to lose. Yeah. But again, it was sort of like the Winnipeg team of old, but not completely. You were mentioning, by the way, JT, you were mentioning that you got to have a beer with Oz from the Rouge, White, and Blue. And that made me think of Joe Pritchard from then. He's a big Winnipeg fan, and he always says it's the Winnipeg formula we've seen for the last 5 years. You get a lead in the first half, you kind of back off in the third quarter and let the other team get close, and then you run the ball and run out the game. And they did that a bit, but not as much. And frankly, they had to, because I didn't think Zach looked that great. I don't know. I should have checked what his final stats were. Here, I could maybe even do that quickly here if one of you wants to say something to cover for me.
I have them. He went 17 for 28 for 233 yards.
Oh, okay. Well, then I don't even have to cover. Yeah. So, I mean, it's not terrible, but that's hardly a world-beating performance.
VA was 17 for 27 with 239 yards, but he had 6 carries for 48. But I mean,
and the thing is, when I look at it, he had probably 80 yards on the 2 passes to Jill and Philpott and Brooks. So I guess maybe I thought he did better than that. Maybe it's just all in my mind, but mind you, they also, part of the reason they were both lower in the pass attempts was that both teams were running the ball well in the first half. I mean, it was really a running back showdown, and it lived up to the hype that was there. I was also impressed there weren't a lot of penalties in this.
Do you have the stats? No, sorry, MJ, you have the stats handy. Just, if you don't mind, just tell me. Okay, great. Can you tell me what both Brady and Mills had as a stat line?
Okay, so Mills had 16 carries for 112 yards. Brady
Okay.
had 15 carries for 113 yards. Brady had 3 of 4 receiving for 24 yards. And I think I didn't even write Mills's receiving down because I think he had 1 or something.
Yeah.
Like
So they were both over 100 yards and they both had a touchdown,
Yeah.
right? Okay, good.
Yeah.
I just want to remember that when we talk about the next game.
Sure. Well, why don't we jump on to that now then? Because this was the last game of the weekend. Edmonton went into Borneo. No, it was Ottawa. The monsoon, it confused me there. Edmonton 29, Ottawa 21 in a terrible weather game. Wind and rain and just perfect conditions for a running game. And in the end, that was the difference, that Edmonton got some good stuff from the running game and Ottawa not so much. And in fact, really, to me, it looked like Ottawa looked very good in the 3 minutes of the end of the half and the 3 minutes at the end of the game. And other than that, it wasn't terribly impressive for Mr. Dinwiddie's debut. They had, I think, 3 turnovers at bad times, just silly sort of mistakes that are there. Like they had Duggan in on short yardage after a real nice drive where they were in scoring position, just had to pick up the first down and never even touched the snap. It just squirted out and Edmonton recovered it. So this was an ugly game. You got to say that. And you can see both teams do have a ways to go. It'll be interesting to see how they perform when they're playing teams in the next tier up or at the top of the league. Let's get what you guys think. Whoever jumps in first.
Well, this game took forever because there was a flag on every play.
Yes.
Every play had a flag, and it was very embarrassing for both teams. The Red Blacks had 70 yards of penalties on one drive. They just marched the Elks right down to the end. I hate nothing. Just grinds my gears, like just giving up yards for no reason, and not even for like pass interference I'll allow, but like nonsense like face masking and like, I mean, Revis had a bad hit on Cody, and I felt bad for him because he was coming in as Cody was slid late, and he would have hit him in the shoulders and he hit him in the helmet, but it was a nasty hit, and he was pleading his case to the ref. But I mean, helmet hits are helmet hits, so that got called. It was unfortunate, but the right call. But yeah, it was sloppy. My note says no one wanted to win.
Yeah, they did make mistakes. There were 24 penalties in all. So
what? It felt like 110 penalties.
Yeah, I know. It was just every play over and over. Edmonton was 14 for 142, and Calgary was 10 for 110. It was, they both gave up. Well, Calgary gave up your field length. And
we're to the point where we had obscure penalties like pyramiding. Like, the Red Blacks got called for pyramiding. And in fact, on Blue Sky, that JM guy tweeted my post about it, and then the Sickos committee found it and tweeted and posted about it. So that was my little Blue Sky claim to fame. Thank you, Red Blacks. Like, pyramiding.
Yeah, well, no, that one's been there for a while, and
I know, but it doesn't get called, right? Like,
no, well, because it doesn't happen that often, and that just shows this was the first game of the season game, right? It was like where all the penalties happened. The weather didn't help, I'm sure, but it just looked like, and as I said to you early on, I was trying to find the skip button on CFL Plus, and every time I did, it was like, I missed the Ottawa thing. That was because it was a 2-and-out. They just kept going, and then it would be the same thing. It was like, oh, did Edmonton not have an offensive play? Oh, yeah, I guess they went 2-and-out. It just didn't seem like there was any flow to that game at all.
Other got the kick. He got it. It went through, and they got called for pyramiding.
And so that took points off the board, right?
took it off
And
the
then
board.
they got a field
Yeah.
goal anyways 2 plays later or something. Was that what happened, if I
Yeah.
remember correctly? So it was redundant anyways. But yeah, it was just it seemed like it was the game of the week that was the first game
Oh,
of the
no,
season.
sorry. Lawther got a field goal, and then he got a time count violation, and that's the one that they got pushed
That was
back.
the other one, yeah. He
Yeah,
never
sorry,
he
that was
kicked
that
the
one. 'Cause
field goal, and it went through, but it never counted.
he was like,
And that time
"Where?
count put
When
them
I
out of
got it?"
they had to punt, and that was a big mistake. Yeah, I'll give you that.
Also, the Red Blacks were in shotgun formation when they had like a yard to go all the time. And then there was one that did you see this? They like fumbled the handoff from the shotgun, and it fumbled, and like it was so messy.
Yeah.
So yeah, and the question that I have, that I don't know if there's what the story is yet, or whether we will know at some point in time, but why wasn't Greg Bella in the game? Like, you paid
He's
how much
injured.
money for this guy?
Injured?
No, he wasn't injured, was he?
Injured? Said he was.
Okay, because I didn't even think he was on. I didn't think he was on the injury report.
No,
The decision was made like the night before the game or something. It was just like Dinwiddie just decided again that no, I'm not playing you. You know, one of those things like power tripping Dinwiddie or something. I wasn't sure. And the whole quarterback thing between that and then when the bell, I was like, wow, they're making some odd decisions.
Well, they just said that they placed him on the. They said it was an existing neck injury that became inflamed on Thursday night, rendering him unable to go.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll have to accept that then. He wasn't on the injury list at all, and it seemed like he was listed as a healthy scratch, one of the two that you're allowed.
Right.
But again, that decision could have been made earlier in the week too. We don't know. We only found out when the depth charts came out a day before the game. And who knows? I agree with you, GT. Some strange choices there. I think they were in the shotgun on 3rd and 1 as much as they were, because Duggan fumbled that first 3rd and 1 under center, and Dinwiddie just didn't.
Oh yes, that was it. Can you imagine being Eugene Lewis and Justin Hardy, and like Mayer's the guy that they're getting to throw balls to you, because Hardy's not even on the stats sheet, and Lewis went 3 for 9. Well, I mean, not even. I wrote down people who had significant yardage.
Okay, yeah. Well, he had a touchdown.
But I mean, it was bad. It was bad. And if I was an Ottawa Red Black fan, I'd be furious. But then I was thinking to myself, there's no other quarterbacks available. This is it.
Yeah. Well,
really?
Brown.
Well, Brown, but I mean, you have the last two. Who else is available? Nobody.
Yeah.
I mean, McLeod Bethel Thompson. Maybe Ryan's on the phone with him. I don't know.
No.
So the Elks looked good in comparison, but I wouldn't say that they looked great. And they relied on Rankin a lot. But this happened last year, and as soon as other defenses scheme for him, there's games, as we all remember, there's games where Cody outrushed Rankin. And so if Rankin's going, they're going to live or die by him. And so he played well and they got him going, but don't expect that from other teams, I would say. Also, you guys remember last year when Tyrell Ford, what I said, he got that amazing reception, and you're like, he just had that land in his hands, in his arms. He couldn't even. So this week he couldn't even handle a ball that hit him in the numbers. He is bad at football.
No, he's not. But it's all, again, old coach and me. Get your hands out there and catch the thing. He tried to.
It hit him in the numbers. It hit him in the numbers more than once. More than once. Looks off. And you know what? He was covering Lewis, and so why they did not attack him more?
Yeah.
Is beyond
and he took
me.
a bad PI.
Yes. Well, he wasn't even looking. I don't know if you saw this, GT, but he wasn't even looking. He shoved Lewis in the end zone, wasn't even looking at the ball. Like the ball was behind him. He just shoving it. And then he was all upset. And
he did not have a good game.
He got showed out looking terrible. Yeah. So I don't know what's going to happen over there, but he was their worst player by far.
But to what you were saying about Rankin, though, he said he wants to go 1,000 this year, 1,000 rushing.
Well, they don't have anyone else. They don't have anyone else to do it, so I guess he will.
Yeah.
They don't have anyone else to do it.
Can I ask you, Can you give me, I'm sure you have it there, MJ. Can you give me ranking stats for the game?
Well, let me do this because I took it a step further. Hold on, because I saw this and I thought, because it's 1,000 and 1,000, right? Now, of course, he's not going to do this every game this season, but he was 102 yards rushing and 94 yards receiving. And if you extrapolate that out, he does that every game for 18 games. That's 836 yards of rushing and 1,692 yards of passing. No problem. He's got it.
If only they played the Red Blacks every week.
He could get 2,000 total. If he was 2,000 total yards, if that's what he's saying, that's easy for him. If you break it down and it's 1,000 each, that's much more difficult. Okay, so he got more receiving yardage than I was aware of. Because I saw afterwards, I saw several things afterwards that seemed to talk about how amazing his game was and how it was a standout running back game of the week. And I was like, did they not watch the other two? Like, I thought the statistics for both Brady and Mills were better than him, and from the little bit that I saw. So I was like, where is this coming from? So if the receptions were there, that's a pretty good game. That's almost 200 yards. That's a pretty darn good game. Total yardage.
If that's your only offensive player, you can't keep doing that.
No, I agree. They need to find something,
Yeah.
I will say the kickers were 100% this week for those two, like Blanchard and Lawther. Lawther can kick field goals again, you guys. Just needed to change a scene.
I've actually always had faith in him. I think he'll do fine. But I'll say this about Rankin. He is a hell of a weapon, and he's got a lot going for him. He has acceleration and top-end speed. When he gets an opening, he's through it in a moment, and he's gone. And he's somewhat elusive. If you get him in the open field, his 94 yards of receiving, half of that, I think, came on a screen pass he got open. But to me, he's got one flaw, and it ends up with being boom or bust. He's either getting somewhere between 15 and 30 or more yards, or he's being stopped at the line over and over. I would love to see what kind of a running back he would be if he could get coached by Andrew Harris for a season. Because the mistake he's making that I see out there, he's pressing the line too much. He takes the handoff and he gets right on top of the offensive lineman and doesn't leave himself any room to cut. And if you look at what Harris did and what he taught AJ in Saskatchewan to do last year, it's almost right, but they press up not quite there. They're maybe a half foot further back, and it gives them a chance to read and go through the openings. And I think if he could learn that patience to play that way, he would be a premier running back in any sense of the word. But I also know from a coaching point of view, it's hard to break a player of a habit that they've had for as long as he's probably had it.
Yeah. No, I think he is a premier running back. I think he's right up there. I think he, if not the most dynamic player in the league, very close to that too. And I take nothing away from him. And the presentation of his statistic and his play versus the other two running backs this particular week, I thought was a little bit off. That's all I'm saying there. That's the reason I wanted to know the actual stats of the three to see how dramatically different they were. I think he's a tremendous player. I really do. Playing Edmonton, previously you always had to have a spy when Trey Ford was at quarterback. You had to have a linebacker that was spying him every single play, and that's all you did. With one linebacker, his job was to do nothing but spy Trey Ford. Well, you don't have to worry about that so much with Cody, but I would have a guy that did nothing but spy Rankin, and that's how you stop him. Is like it's just you can't allow him to get loose, and you can't allow him to have that opportunity to catch a screen pass in the flat and get 40 or 50 yards. You've got to have a guy whose job is nothing but spying him every single play.
I don't want anyone to think I'm disrespecting Rankin. I'm not. I'm very impressed with a lot of the stuff he's doing. What I'm saying is that if he learned that how to do that press and patience a little bit better, the number of carries he gets that goes for 0 or minus 1 or 2 yards would turn into carries that were 4 to 8 yards. And if he could get that consistency in the game, it'd be a lot better. Now, I mean, admittedly, at the end of the game, Ottawa knew they were running and stacked the defense against it. but in their last 3 possessions, in under 3 minutes, they gave the ball to him 4 times for -6 yards. And they didn't even
Right.
vary what they were trying to do with him. They just basically an A or B gap run, and it just didn't work. So at that point, all the patience in the world isn't going to help you. But in a regular game action, it would certainly make him more of a danger that you're not counting on him getting 15 yards. You know, he's at least giving you the second and short, which doesn't happen very much. Sorry, am I too aggressive? Have I scared everybody off?
No, I just, you know, and it's a rare occasion I had no rebuttal. That's all.
Okay. Well, other little bits. I thought that Luther for Calgary put on a reasonably good showing as a new receiver. I'd have to pull up his stats, but he caught a few passes out there and didn't look out of place. Bennett Williams for the Ottawa defense had a hell of a game. And probably, even if you weren't watching close, you knew that because TSN was mentioning him several times on the game that he had. Anything else that you guys have? What do I have here? Yeah, again, that, like I said, the last 3 minutes of the game, Ottawa goes 40-yard pass to Lewis that sets up a touchdown to Hardy, and then a 2-point convert. Looked fantastic. At the end of the first half, I think they got a touchdown there too, but everything else sort of in between. And it was, you mentioned the field goal that they, at the first drive of the second half, they marched it down to the edge of field goal range and then took a time count that hurt them. Just
I expected
not a pretty
better
game
from Brian.
Yes, and you can
I
tell
feel
Ryan's,
bad for Red Blacks fans.
because you can tell Ryan was part of the Calgary coaching tree because he threw the desperation challenge flag with a few minutes left anyway. You know, so
It's just like, is there like some sort of hex on this team because they changed like their entire coaching staff and like
Yeah.
a lot of their players, and it's the same exact results.
Yeah. Well, it was a wet game, so you got to take that into account. But still, there was just stuff like that fumble on short yardage. There's no
Yeah,
excuse for
okay.
that. Another fumble, they did a toss to Collins, and he didn't get it stripped. Basically, just the defender's hand brushed the ball as he was going by, and out it came. So they didn't have the ball security. They didn't seem cohesive. They didn't seem to have their heads in the game as much as I would have liked.
They're lucky forward cannot catch balls.
We all kind of thought Ottawa would have some trouble like Edmonton did last year, just with the amount of changes, including the amount of coaching staff changes. It's going to take some time. So I'm not that surprised. I'm a little surprised that Edmonton didn't win by more. Even the way I watched the game, I thought the game was over. And I was surprised at what the final score was because it seemed like both teams scored a bunch of points after I turned the game off. But because I think it was 20-10 or something when I turned it off, and I was like, yeah, it's done. I don't know. I just thought Edmonton should have won by more points than that, given that Ottawa was the way that they were going into the game. So I'm like you, MJ. I'm not sure that Edmonton we'll wait and see. Give them a couple weeks to see whether they are going to be good enough yet. Anyways, I'm not surprised Ottawa lost. I'm not surprised that they're still making mistakes. I'm not surprised that they're going to go through these growing pains. It's going to be maybe even as 8 to 10 games in before, like Edmonton was last year, before all of a sudden you'll see it semi-gel, if at all. And yeah, I'm not impressed with their quarterbacking, but I've never been impressed with Jake Mayer. So that's another issue with that entirely. So
yes, well, I thought Edmonton's problem was lack of finish. Too many field goals. I mean, I don't have do you have the count there of field goals
5
versus
field
touchdowns?
goals for
Yeah.
the Elks.
Yeah.
I blame this on weather, though. This
So
was
2 touchdowns.
when it's pouring rain, I expect it to
Yeah.
be a run game and field goals.
But they moved the ball fairly well up to field goal range. And they weren't getting down to the 10 or the 15 where your area of play is all bunched up. They were getting stopped, from what I'm remembering, around the 25 or 30, where you still got lots of room to operate, but they just couldn't seem to put them away. Still didn't seem to have the killer instinct in there.
It's nice, though, that they finally have a kicker that they can rely on. Because if this
Yep.
was a couple years ago, they would not have won this game because
Yeah.
none of their kickers would have kicked 5 for 5.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, that's true. They have found something finally.
Yeah, took Blanchard a couple years, like this is his second or third year in, so he's finally settled down.
You know my memory how bad it is, but I think it's his second full year on the roster, and he was on the practice squad and maybe got into a couple of games 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Late in the season, I think he might have come in some, but don't quote me on that. That could be just pure fantasy coming out of my brain anyways.
I saw that Dean Faithful is playing in Paris now.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Well, hey.
And Boris Beattie, they're both in Europe playing football.
Makes sense. There's been
Good for
a
them.
few articles about U Sports people that have gone over there to play. It's
Good job,
becoming
kickers.
somewhat bigger. It's still not fantastic, but it's getting some more attention.
Hey man, if I go was living in Europe and getting paid to kick balls, like great, sign me up.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're pushing 2 hours here. I'm getting to be a tired old man, so let's maybe call that on our recaps and move on to, do you have some power rankings for us this week, GT?
I'm gonna write them down because we're gonna post them.
Oh, okay, no problem. Yeah, I've got them. I thought about it for about 30 seconds or so and figured it out. And so here's what I've got. Saskatchewan at 1 because, as we said, they're still the champs, and until they lose, you got to give them the opportunity to be 1, and they haven't lost yet, so they're there. Montreal because they won, so they give them their 2. BC because they haven't lost yet, and I think there's still the opportunity is there for them to be good enough. Then I have Winnipeg at 4 because they won. Edmonton at 5 because they won. Calgary and Hamilton I have tied at 6 and 7, so flip them around, do whatever you want with them, and I'm not going to argue with you because they both lost in tight games. So what difference does it make? And then Ottawa and because they lost in Toronto because they haven't played yet, and we're not sure how they're going to be. So until next week, when things change, that's how I've got them.
Sounds good. Let us know what you think, and remember, specify GT if they're nasty comments. Otherwise, the whole show will take credit for them. And I got to say, GT, in some ways, you're mirroring the other ones that have been out there longer term, both the 3-down ones and the AMSOL ones on CFL. CA were very close to you. They both had the top 3 teams as Saskatchewan, BC, and Montreal, and you flipped Montreal and BC there. And they both had the Ottawa and then Toronto as the bottom teams. But they were all over the place with those middle teams. For those middle 4 had Winnipeg, Calgary, Edmonton, and then Hamilton in 7th. And AMSOL had Hamilton, Edmonton, Winnipeg, and then Calgary in 7th. It's pretty obvious that we're all still just trying to figure out what we can at the start of a season here. But thank you for that. What else did I have here? Oh, because we're getting on to the predictions of the games next week, and if you are worried about fantasy or anything, I'm going to try and do this each week. Just quickly run down notable names that are on the injury report. None of them are officially ruled out yet, so take that with a grain of salt. But just for where we are, Hamilton, McManus did not participate again all week at linebacker. The only one.
I thought I saw him officially ruled out.
He is
it may have been on the injury reports. They didn't. I don't think they had that. Maybe I was wrong, but he did not participate all week. Winnipeg had Major Williams, who's one of their new corners, and Dembski both as questionable, which, knowing Winnipeg, means they're in great health and they'll have fantastic games. Toronto, the only one was Herslow, who was limited, so he'll probably be playing. Montreal, as MJ mentioned, Lawrence is on the 6-game list. They still have Scott III and Speaker, as well as Najee Murray, Josh Archibald, and Tyrese Beverett, all on the did not participate at this point. So if those don't make it to the game, that could... Well, I don't think they play this week, though, do they? No, they don't.
Yes, they do.
Do they?
Yes,
they play Toronto. My bad. Yep. Otherwise, they wouldn't be on the injury report. Stupid old man.
Oh, boy.
Sutton was limited. In BC, a couple of O-linemen, Cage and Pearson, were both on the did not participate, along with their DeMontague. Is that how you pronounce their new rookie? He was on did not participate. Also, Thibaut Debye, Gary Peters, and Deontay Williams were on the limited list there. And the notable ones in Saskatchewan, I didn't think there were really a lot. Cote Moore and Marion both on the defensive line. And then Darius Bell, but he's the rookie, and I don't think he would have been in the lineup anyway. And Daniel Johnson, who's another lineman who looked good when he's not injured, and he's limited. So it'll be interesting to see the depth charts. But that's what the teams are dealing with. So now we have to decide who's going to win. So we'll start with Hamilton at Winnipeg. Who's going to win, and any thoughts you might have on why? We'll start with MJ, because it's Hamilton.
Yeah, I despaired about this a lot today, and I went back and forth on it. Seresna and Willie Jefferson really worry me, but I think Hamilton did play well against Montreal for most of that game, and I think that they will clean it up a bit, so I will take Hamilton.
Okay, GT?
My inclination is to go Hamilton, but
I know.
it's at home. It's in Winnipeg. Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Bombers.
Yeah, that's sound.
And I'm somewhat the same. The Bombers look good enough to make me to think that at home they might be able to take out Hamilton. If it's not a close game, if it's a wide margin for either team, it'll make it much harder to sort of figure out what's going on. But I'm going to go with Winnipeg in the end.
This is gonna be I don't know. I'm very wary of my pick.
Well, maybe I should have said, actually, I should have said this at the start. Take our picks with a grain of salt here, because the show went 1-2 in our picks last week.
And as we talked about earlier in the off season, this year is going to be so close, and I think a lot of people feel the same way. It's going to be so much parity, and it's going to be so close. Like stuff that you thought was going to happen, like Winnipeg not being up to snuff, is maybe not as obvious as it was. And all of a sudden you're like, okay, now that you've seen them play, now you get a different idea. So yeah, Edmonton being really good, and maybe they're not quite as good as we thought they were going to be to start the season. Now that we've seen them play every week, we won't know until what's good next week is going to be like until we see this week. Even Saskatchewan at this point in time, we don't know how they're going to turn out until we see them play. Right. So I think that's why I'm leaning towards Winnipeg, because I honestly I wouldn't have said Winnipeg 2 weeks ago. I wouldn't have picked this on my prediction this week. I would have taken Hamilton for sure, but now I'm not so sure. And home field advantage means something in Winnipeg. So that's the reason I'm giving it to the Bombers. Not that I don't think it could be another overtime. It could be another, field goal kind of game that close. But I just think I'm now taking the Bombers when 2 weeks ago I wouldn't have taken the Bombers.
Ditto.
Yeah.
I agree. And also, not for nothing, but just to point out that was how the show did with our 1-2. Your host and panelists here, 2 people went 1-2 and one went 2-1. I won't bother mentioning who might have been the 2-1, because that would just be snide. I knew Montreal was going to win. That's why I said at the start of that game, never in doubt. All right. So moving on, GT, you get to go first on Toronto at Montreal.
That's a lot of people on that list that you just ran off. The longest of all the lists that you just rambled off on injury lists was Montreal. I don't know. I'm going to take Montreal. I am going to take Montreal. It's at home. They've won. Davis likes to play into the crowd. I'll take Montreal. I will take Montreal.
And I'll jump in second here, just so we keep kind of a fair rotation. And I'm kind of like you. These are the games I would honestly not be surprised to see Toronto come in and win by like 15 points. But I'm going to go with the fact that a bunch of those guys that did not participate, it's still only Tuesday. They don't play till Friday. So they may be back. And I think the safe pick is Montreal. So I'm going to do that. MJ?
All right. 2 things. They are honoring the Croix before the game, and that I think puts it's an intangible. And I guess I have 3 reasons. 2, I am not betting against Davis Alexander till he loses. He is undefeated regular season, although he doesn't want to talk about that. And 3, I am picking Montreal because I do not want to wear this hat again next week.
There we go. All right. Yes. He said specifically he doesn't want to talk about it because it doesn't count. He's very, very candid about the fact he considers the fact he lost the Grey Cup counting, and he's no longer an undefeated quarterback. So who cares? You know, I like the attitude. Alrighty, last one, and I'll jump into this one because it is BC at Saskatchewan. I could try to pontificate about a bunch of stuff about the home team and all that, but frankly, at this point, I have no idea. So I will default to where I always do with no idea and take Saskatchewan. MJ, your turn to go second.
So this is another Prairie home game. I'm very upset about my first choice, but Nathan Rourke is the wild card. I'm going to go BC.
Yeah, this is a tough one. I'm not sure. Are they doing ring presentations and all that nonsense this game and unfurling the banner and all that good stuff? Or is that already done and
I
dusted
don't
and they're
know,
not
but I
worried
would
about it?
think so.
I would think this
I
is the
haven't
week
heard.
they do all that, right? So it's going to be a raucous crowd. They're all going to still be celebrating from last November. I'm not sure if that adds more or less pressure on either team on the field until at least the game gets started. And then, so if somebody gets an early lead one way or the other, that might impact it. And as I said in the power rankings, Saskatchewan hasn't lost yet. They're still the defending champions, and until somebody beats them, they are. So I'm going to go with Saskatchewan, even though I feel like BC could win again. I'm going to go with Saskatchewan just because of the emotion of all those other things. I think they can carry it through.
Yeah.
So,
and I will add my opinion on this, and it's nothing more than an opinion. But I think the cutoff point is probably a winning score of about 25 points. If the winner has less than 25 points, Saskatchewan takes the game. If they have more than it, BC takes it. Because the Saskatchewan defense, we don't know what their rush is going to look like now. And if they can't hold Nathan down to a reasonable amount, as good as they are, I don't think that they can come out and get into a firefight, get into a gunfight with Nathan.
These are extremely stressful. I don't think I was this stress picking last year. These seem like this is.
That's because you're thinking about it.
I guess I am not at all confident, but I know what I was pretty confident last week, and that turned out terrible. So maybe it'll.
Yeah. Well, I think as GT said, this is how the season's going to go. Nobody's going to be terribly confident.
It's the best case scenario. I hope that I am very unconfident in my picks because everyone is playing so well.
Yes. Well, I think that's about it. Oh, look at this. We'll see what I edited it down to, but we're going to be around 2 hours. So too late to tell all of this viewers and listeners, but strap in. It's a bit of a long one. Let's any closing comments and your social media, please. We'll start with GT.
At GT Barnum on Blue Sky. And that's about it. It's now 6 o'clock in the morning, and I have to be up in 2 hours, so I'm going back to bed.
Okay, we'll get through this in a hurry here then.
Yeah, good night,
MJ.
Yes, I don't know. You can find me second guessing everything about what I think about football over on Blue Sky at Sports and Plants. You can find much more cohesive thoughts on our Instagram account.
All right. Well, I won't promise that I post cohesive thoughts on any of our accounts, but you can find me as oldman-sac at bluesky.social on Blue Sky. It's about the only place you'll find me directly, but feel free. I'm also running most of the other accounts. MJ does Threads and Instagram, but everything else I'm kind of doing. So you can look for us at the CFL Outsiders and Blue Sky and Gander and A. So, 2 Canadian ones and a growing bigger one. We don't do Facebook, but other than that, we are on X and Instagram and Threads. I think it's that same handle for all of us. But that's about it. Hopefully we haven't lulled you off to sleep, or maybe if you have some trouble sleeping and worry what helps put you to sleep gives you another reason to listen. So, subscribe and do not miss us. Toss a like our way when you're feeling in a great mood. Like doesn't necessarily mean you liked it. It just means, hey, I'll help. Anyway, I think that's about it. So I'm going to say good night, GT. And for GT and MJ, this is Old Man saying, until next week, get the hell off my lawn.